Alex Answer here. It is the afternoon of March 25th in the year 2018. High noon, in fact, sitting here by the river sharing with you some of my latest thoughts. One of the things that I've been trying to do is watch less YouTube, and I've actually been making less YouTube videos, and I've actually been reading more and writing more and trying to be in line with nature. What I'm seeing in the news, however, needs to be discussed. I'll show a few clips from the news, but we're talking about Cambridge Analytica and the story that you're not being told and why this is significant even for those that have voted for Donald Trump. You see, because people are still making this a political issue. Okay, here is the revelation from the whistleblower himself. Data has been mined on over 50 million Facebook users. So probably not just Americans. By getting people to answer a question on a silly quiz that asks permission, just like those games, Gangster Wars, Mafia Wars, that we saw years ago. It'd be like, are people really adding me or asking me or inviting me to play these games? And I mean, maybe, but it really seemed like there was almost a virus that was there to grab people's information. So what Cambridge Analytica did was gain access to people's personal information, what you like, everything you've commented on. But according to the whistleblower, this could include, and I think he's using language to stay safe, and he is being used as a political tool. But we'll talk about that. But there's still real information that is coming out. Our personal messages have been compromised. And see, you have to keep in mind that data being in the hands of foreign nations like China. So I was suspecting, even before I watched that interview, thank you, Julian Portland, for sending that, an old friend. And then I sat down last night and watched 3 or 4 videos. It's like, yeah, they're making this political, but I've been saying the whole time it's a selection. But did they still turn us against each other? And the revelation is, how were they so able to do that and target specific areas like Colorado, Virginia, and Florida? Key areas. They've been socially engineering key areas, including the very county, the very community in Colorado that I'm in right now, has been socially engineered by Facebook. You see, you could take somebody out of the country or in the country and hand them a smartphone. But if there's an algorithm to custom target that person based on where they live, based on their ethnicity, based on their demographics, to influence them to believe a certain way, most people will, because most people don't know about COINTELPRO. Most people don't even know about what happened in the 1970s, let alone what they're doing right now on Facebook. And it'll come out that even Obama was engaged in this activity in 2012. So people in their propaganda political wars will pull out that fact to protect Cambridge Analytica from what they did. No. Everybody should be waking up to how they've been using our personal data, including personal messages, to develop individual psychological profiles, to use that information against us. And the way they use that information against us is they turn us against each other. And that's the key to what's been happening in America. And even why I decided to go, I mean, what are the real root reasons why I sought to go off grid as far back as 2011, 2012, when Obama was the president? Why was I seeking to go off grid and get away from even liberal areas when Obama was the president? It was the shutting down of consciousness. It was the fake news then. Here, our loving leader. Change we can believe in. It just took a few years to add in to make America great again. But it's the same thing. It's called the left-right paradigm. It's called problem, reaction, solution. So in this one world government, there is the illusion of choice. When they showed us 2000 when they took the election, were we really to think that that was an election in 2008 between Barack Obama and John McCain? Please. Romney? Really? 2012 versus Obama. Yeah, a real election there. a real fight. It was a show. Just like Putin and Obama staring each other down, it's a show. And now we have threats between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Fight, fight, fight. I'll beat you up. No, I'll beat you up. And then people looking at that and they're reposting that. You see, Trump supporters should be concerned about their personal data being in the hands of foreign governments, whether it be Russia, China, or private interest groups. If you really care about the Constitution and you care about your privacy and you are concerned about the surveillance society, well, now the very things that I warned you about are coming to fruition. I said several years ago, at least, that Facebook and the tech giants, YouTube and Google, were working with the fake news purveyors to make sure that that was reaching the top of the feed. That wasn't just speculation that just floated off into the air. It's now confirmed. But see, it's the turn in the punch bowl. When Hillary Clinton is featured in those documentaries and the Cambridge Analytica revelation is made to be a political thing. Oh, if only this sabotage wouldn't have happened, Hillary would be the president. No, Donald Trump was their selection the whole time. Hillary Clinton threw the fight to Donald Trump, acting like she's about to die. And she looks just, I don't want to say fine, but she looks like a somewhat normal person for her age, to be frank. She doesn't look at all to me like she's close to dying. So all that was a front to throw the fight. You know, throw the fight? Kind of like the mafia owning both sides or both basketball teams, and the strong men coming up telling the top basketball player it's time for you to throw the fight. Whether or not you want to throw the fight, whether it's boxing or baseball or basketball, when they tell you to throw the fight, you throw the fight. There's going to be consequences. But usually, if they've already been placed in their position as superstar, they've already been groomed to play the game. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in that position. Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama wouldn't be in their position to begin with unless they were part of the game, unless they were a part of the one world government, unless they were a part of the plot to loot the American economy, to allow these foreign armies one day to literally just walk right into this country or be invited. There's a period of civil unrest. Russia and China to the rescue. And we could see the plan for this under multiple administrations. What we're seeing with Donald Trump is nothing new. What we will see after 2020 will be nothing new. So whether someone's on one side or the other, they got to understand that they have harvested the data. And that this group, Cambridge Analytica, was in Kenya working both sides of the conflict, or at least running propaganda for one side. And in the EU as well, for far-right nationalist parties. Now, I understand someone wanting to preserve their heritage at the same time, and their culture. But there are people that will play on our tribalistic tendencies, our instincts. They will play on our survival instincts to manipulate us and turn us against each other. And so there are unnecessary racial tensions within this country now that were not existing 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and onwards to the degree that it is now. Even the days and years after 9/11, there was more unity amongst the people. Even those that believe the official story of those people over there did this to us. Okay, so you respond. You don't turn your society into a society to where we're all looking the other way. And now we're in a society to where they have events coming from the white supremacists and events coming from the jihadists. And the question is, how do we know when one thing is real and one thing is false or manufactured involving performance artists? We see a rise in quote-unquote hate crimes and a rise in quote-unquote terror attacks. And it's a matter of preference today whether someone goes fake news or goes, oh shit. Ultimately, they're using the vibration of fear to box in all the world's people in individual, unique ways. And the things that I'm saying appear so crazy to most people that they're discounting it. But everything that I'm seeing right now is confirmation. I'm seeing confirmation right now with Cambridge Analytica and this knowledge about this leak. China by now has our private messages. There's no doubt in my mind. There's a link between Trump, Eric Prince of Blackwater, to Cambridge Analytica, to foreign nation states and foreign governments like China, where in China, Eric Prince has been running a Chinese security firm. Excuse me? I posted the article over at alexansory.tv, the Facebook page. Just type in alexansory.tv into Facebook. Like the page, follow the news, comment on the news, share the page, help it grow, just like this channel. Also follow on Twitter. There's also going to be an additional video that I'll be recording to my on-demand channel. So for those of you that are part of that several dozen subscribers to outsidethebox.vhx.tv, there's also going to be a video uploaded for the on-demand audience. If you can join, it helps contribute to what it is that I'm doing full-time off-the-grid media. You know, we've seen a major collapse in AdSense, myself in particular. You know, so my overall take-home, even with support, is less than $400 now per month. YouTube, on-demand, Patreon. Okay, about $400 per month take-home, all of those combined. So any additional support helps me month to month down to the dollar at this point. Because I believe the Creator has blessed me with the ability to be here. But I'm not blessed, perhaps in some ways economically, that others are. And I've had to learn to live with less. But I'll tell you what, it's all forged, kind of like a hammer banging on steel. It's all been forging this spirit. Spiritually battle-hardened, if you will. If I can't take the isolation that comes from being a real political independent in today's day and age, how am I going to be able to deal with what's coming, what I believe is coming after the 2020s? A time and space in this reality where there's going to be less of my data just flowing freely onto the internet. I mean, I look at all these Facebook posts. I literally have written a book on Facebook. I literally created a page called Quotes by Alex Ansary to at least log within the hive mind those quotes that are my quotes, that might even seem weird or attitude-ish to the person reading it on Facebook, but will live on in a book in 100 years. With my name being attributed as the author to those several hundred quotes. It isn't until we're gone to where we leave the body, for most people that are poets or authors, that their work is understood. So the second half of my life, now that I'm 38, been 38 for about a month, is going to be marked by a lot of literature, a lot of data that will actually be on physical paper. I know the effect now of 4,000 videos over the course of 14 years. I don't yet know the impact of one physical book and its impact upon the earth in future generations. But we do have a karmic connection to all people, future and past generations. And see, the disinformation now is there to demonize Americans in the future. You keep hearing me bring it back to this, bring it back, and I keep bringing it back to this particular point that they're using this propaganda to influence behavior to then come up with new propaganda that says the Americans must be stopped, their government and their electoral process and the mindset of the voters is so broken to the point of no recall. We got to build a new system. In fact, we need a one world government to end the war of all the wars. And see, I don't want to get my channel flagged, but just so you know, now we're $21 trillion in debt. Renewed tensions at the South China Sea. China warning of military action on Taiwan if these armed cells between the U.S. and Taiwan move forward and Trump visits to Taiwan, Taiwan coming to the White House or things of that nature. Like, it's all a script. Like, there's no wild card here. At the highest levels of the Chinese leadership and the highest levels of the U.S. shadow government and the highest levels of the Russian oligarchy above Vladimir Putin, they have laid out their timetable for World War III. And all these super state nation intelligence agencies are involved in remote viewing. They're involved in disinformation campaigns. They have the private message data from Facebook. See, now I think some people weren't so naive for choosing to stay off Facebook all these years. It wasn't necessarily that they knew that this would happen. It's just that they knew that this would happen. No, they didn't know that it would be exactly this scenario, just in general. That they made it easy for us to just dump our data. And in doing so, they did a lot of damage to our society. They have a lot of data now on Americans, and I would say American women, that could even become sex trafficking targets in the future if we're occupied. Now that they've replaced men with cell phones, and I'm a pioneer in talking about this, and good men leaving mainstream society, one of my most watched videos. Women are getting now what they weren't commenting on 3 years ago. I, as a man, said those things 3 years ago that are only now getting comments on that particular video. That the whole socially engineering economic collapse comes down to good people leaving mainstream society and no longer being productive members of those communities. And so there's an even greater reliance on cell phones being the actual mechanism to contact the police. So we're now in a society less prepared for an economic collapse of the society than any other time in known human history. So as people continue to believe, I actually had a crowd walk by and I kept my focus, a crowd of 4, and they kept walking, which is kind of comical. But ultimately, that's what we're dealing with. A society that has been receiving the luxuries of the grid for a long, long time, right? And technology replacing our relationships. And all you have to do, ladies, is just call 911. And it's not that I'm advocating a total old world way of living. It's that we've been given a false sense of security from the cell phone, from the police state, from the grid. And people are now bombarded with so much disinformation that they don't need to censor those of us that are telling the truth. They just need to bombard society with disinformation, create more fear of men. Me Too campaign. Oh, every man is like this. Now, on the other side, on the dark side of MGTOW, which I literally jumped into that pool and then came out shooting going, oh God, never again. Whoa. And I just want to say, like, you would think that women would have been my trolls the last few years. Now it's been men, males. I also realize that women have actually been pretty good to me, even though they're like the minority of the audience, according to analytics, like 10%, and it reads 90% male. So it's like there's been times where I've viewed men as more empathetic. Then there's also times to where there's an element of myself that only seems to be understood and appreciated by a few men and a few women that are at a certain level of sensitivity to where they get it. They understand. And they understand that I'm putting out information that can help men and women. I mean, men could benefit from the information I'm sharing if there's a woman in their life or a family that they're responsible for. Why stay in one of the most dangerous, most at-risk places on the earth if your wife or your daughter could end up a trafficking target because of elements, environmental conditions, and cause and effect? And there are some people that I knew years ago. One person told me that he moved to Idaho. First of all, he's concerned about things going on, but watching my interview with Joel Skousen was a part of that process in him deciding that he needed to strategically relocate away from Southern California, and he relocated his family in conjunction with reading Joel's book and seeing my interview with him and his own research to somewhere in Idaho that is just rich in resources, water. It's like where one beautiful terrain like Oregon meets a terrain like Colorado, and you're getting like a mix of those climates and terrains, to where it's ideal for fruit trees and certain things and certain crops that are not as ideal here, for example. So it's inspiring to see that, but it's also frustrating to see that this is probably the most important time for my word to get out there to the world at large, to people around the world. The problem is we're having algorithm problems. Very few people see what I'm posting on Facebook. Very few people are interacting with the content on Twitter. And the YouTube view count is still basically at 2013 levels. There's actually another YouTuber that was complaining that, despite the fact he was on a big show, and he was, to talk about his case in Costilla County, his subscriber number is like stuck at 400. And it's like, could there be attempts on the part of the government to step in and mark certain individuals and maybe not kill them, take them out, or censor them, but render them invisible to the point where they can scream and shout their truth all day long? They'll just be shoveled in this category where no one will hear them scream. Screaming, running to the hills. Just make sure you got what it takes to survive reality on the hill. That's isolation. Things like, lower emotions, depression, mania. See, there's certain energies that come with being at certain elevations. And you can tap into the most extreme of extreme spiritual insights. You can also go mad. You can also go back and forth like a teeter-tot until you learn balance. That's one of the boot camp personal realities that I'm going through. And I can even see like an evolution of elements of what it is that I'm talking about. From the first video that I did on the property to where I'm at now, coming up, now hitting the 2-year anniversary since I've been, right, in this new part of Colorado. Looking forward to 2020 and looking at some goals for another place in Colorado. More specifically in the San Luis Valley, thinking about Crestone, Saguache County, thinking about if maybe that's the place. Because there seems to be a destiny in all this for a lot of us. Other than a concentration camp, other than being killed, other than living our whole lives in the city, but unplugging from the grid. And for me, it's baby steps to get to that point. For me, I need to be at the point where I don't need to even generate a few $100s every month to make land payments. To the point where I'm beyond that and I can just immerse myself in writing to where time becomes an illusion. Where I can go beyond even addiction to any type of food, including meat or any other addiction, and just be immersed in growing food, and just be immersed in writing, and just be immersed in a lifestyle that doesn't even require me to be on YouTube to make the most minimum of minimums, to go even beyond my own media activism and go deep within myself and pull out that deepest truth. Some of the stuff that's most attacked that I've said on YouTube that's been considered controversial will be the most appreciated when it's actually put into a book. We can look at 14 years of 4,000 videos and some of the positive effects, but also some of the challenges and misunderstandings, plus being on social media and that being a way of engaging with others creates a distorted misunderstanding vortex. So some of the people now in which I would consider them friends on Facebook, I make sure they have my Gmail email so we can talk there or something to that effect. Even though that's also being spied on and will forever be in a government database that perhaps all the intelligence agencies have access to. I mean, it's Gmail. It doesn't seem to have the same creepiness as talking to someone that you're a friend with, talking about camping trips with, personal issues with everybody that's spying on your personal messages on Facebook. This is something that women have really needed to understand. They're addicted to both Facebook, cell phones, technology replacing our relationships, for them to understand that they are not the only ones having that conversation. If they're here to take their spirituality seriously, to wake up and unplug from the matrix, your relationships cannot solely be going through a Facebook server with spiritual parasites, government intelligence agencies, and other groups looking at your content. If that's the only way that you're interacting with people, how are you awake? There was a time where people would gaze into water. There was a time in which people would gaze upon their truth and contemplate their truth as they gazed in the water, kind of like Nostradamus. And then there was a time in which they gave us their truth and something that they called a smartphone. And then people's reality began to be created for them instead of themselves creating their own reality. Okay, that is the world in which we live in today. It's not a collective shift in consciousness for the higher when technology like this is sending millions to billions into a panic and a flight of fear at the same moment in time without being aware of it and providing those negative emotions for those spiritual parasites that are feeding on their fear, their anger, their anxiety. And that's the global situation now. We're a farm. We're an energy farm. That's like, when somebody says to you, I'm not into the idea of a creator. That's religion. I'm into energy. That's not necessarily spiritual. In a world of many energy vampires in both physical form and non-physical form, running around. So those are the spiritual thoughts that I'm going to leave you with. You know, we're responsible for evolving beyond this matrix. There's information on the internet that you can access and videos that can help you do that. There's also things that can set you back, just like there's food that can improve your health. There's toxic drugs and foods and items that can put you down for a long, long time. And so the general idea with this flaming sword of Facebook and the internet, and somebody just walked by on their cell phone, is to be able to use it for the highest good. It's given us an ability to actually meet each other in a way that we previously didn't have, but instead have people in, men's groups for those that are acting like they're waking up, or co-ed groups where people are, involved in creating alternative media. That seems to only exist for people into just normal stuff. Martial artists, dancers, Alcoholics Anonymous, artists, they seem to be able to function as a community. But your average person that says that they're aware of the one world government or the manufactured wars, most of them are unable or unwilling or don't believe in the idea of community. Because we've been very much looking at the dark side of life. It's like something from Tales from the Dark Side. And so, just being aware of threats to your reality, threats to your life, just being aware of invaders or invasion plots, just being aware of conspiracy theories, that by itself, without a spiritual backbone, can actually turn someone in to being a servant of the dark forces. By responding to this type of fearful world, right, to the way they want us to respond. Problem, reaction, solution. So there's a dark side and a light side to not only in the research community, but how we're interacting with Facebook. If you're just going on autopilot and letting what's on the feed and on Twitter and on YouTube and that host on YouTube, right, paint your reality for you, how are we something other than an android? Ultimately, that is the purpose in our lives, to reach soul, destiny, full potential. And to do that, we have to rise above the consciousness of the android that is easily programmed by the hive mind. What we're seeing right now on Facebook, what we're seeing right now with Cambridge Analytics, is that there very much is a real world plot that we can prove, taste, and touch, regardless of your political position, that has attempted to hack into our minds and redirect our focus. There must be something special about our focus, about our minds, about what we're able to comprehend, that would cause such intelligence-like agencies to try to hack us. People ought to be waking up spiritually to these revelations that are taking place in the news, regardless of your political positions, right? There's no excuse for anyone to have your private messages, even if you voted for the president. That information is forever, as far as I'm concerned, in the hands of foreign nation states like China. So this means to me that a lot of things that I'm saying to you are being confirmed years after the period in which I first bring them to YouTube. I really hope good people come together in the flesh in the next few years in parts of Middle America, and that we start transitioning to more of a natural way of life before some of these major events like global warfare take place. And with that, I'll see you in the next video.